Hello and welcome to episode 16 of Diary of a Common Man. My name is Salim Lalani and thank you so much for joining me once again. This week I am excited because we are going to enter the dark world of mind control, and this is my favorite topic. We will understand what is mind control and identify different mind control techniques at the disposal of people who want to abuse us. We will see how these techniques are deployed in cults and in particular Agakhanis cult. But before that, some housekeeping. Thanks to your support, we have now reached 250,000 views over last 3 months. This is on YouTube only. I am told that these videos are more popular on other social media channels, in particular WhatsApp. I continue to get emails and calls from Agakhanis who were on the edge of leaving. My videos have confirmed their suspicion, so I wish to thank all my supporters, all the volunteers and those who have pledged donations. Thank you. It is only because of you that I've come this far. So together, let's say no to abuse of Islam and any other faith for that matter, and abuse of poor people. We are still in the process of establishing a trust and we will keep you updated. A big thank you to all those who have pledged. Yet again, I have been approached by an Agakhani representative asking me a different question this time. The question is, what do I want? He maintained he was not sent by Aga Khan headquarters in Eglemore. He said he took the initiative himself when he saw me pleading for a dialogue. It is very possible that he came out of his own free will, but what bothers me is it took him 10 days to realize that he should have a dialogue. Anyway, I met him. We identified the issue. Unfortunately, he was in denial, as they normally are. He even refused to accept that any issues existed. If he could see anything, it was only the fact that Aga Khan has got the AKDN and he does wonderful work. That is all he could see nothing else. Now, I made sure, and he also wanted to know, what do I want? What is the issue according to me? And I told him 3 different things. Number one issue, Aga Khan's divinity is an insult to Islam, number 1. Number 2, there is too much smoke around the system's financial aspect. And number 3, indoctrination of innocent children. He has promised me that he will relay my message to Aga Khan. Let me now return to our weekly episode. At the conclusion of World War II, Korea found itself torn between 2 ideologies. North of Korea gravitated towards Chinese communism and south of Korea towards Western capitalism. As a result, in 1950, a war broke out between South and North. United Nations sent military assistance to the south, headed by US. On the other hand, China backed North Korea. The war lasted 3 years. Eventually, in 1953, an accord was signed splitting the nation permanently in 2 parts, North and South Korea. During the war, both sides took prisoners of war. But an amazing incident happened when North Korea, the communist side, took US prisoners of war. These US soldiers were imprisoned, but after a couple of years they were released. When they were released, to everyone's surprise, they refused to go home. They actually had become communists during their time in the prison. The whole world, and in particular the Americans, could not figure out how could that happen. Someone that left US soil to die for it becomes a communist within a matter of 2 years. It was later discovered that these prisoners of wars were subjected to various mind control techniques. Agakhani cult, like many other systems, subject their victims to such techniques from crypt to coffin. Beginning with this episode, we will learn how our minds can be controlled outside our knowledge, just like someone controlling a robot remotely. We will learn the difference between brainwashing and indoctrination. We will learn about various mind control ideas or techniques. We will learn how little children are subjected to mind control techniques similar to what they did with the US prisoners of war. We will learn how beautifully these techniques are incorporated in the daily Jamaat Khana rituals and prayers. But before all that, we will need to understand human brain and how malleable it is. Kathleen Taylor, in her famous book Brainwashing, calls this lump of grey matter a traitor in the skull. Human brain is made up of 3 parts: cerebrum, cerebellum, and a brain stem. It is the cerebrum that we are concerned with. Cerebral cortex, which is the cerebrum's outer layer, is made up of 2 hemispheres. One is the left hemisphere and the second is the right hemisphere. They are joined together by a connective tissue called corpus callosum, which facilitates communication and coordination between the 2 hemispheres. Now the left one, the left hemisphere, its job is to think analytically, critically, logically, whereas the right one is more creative in nature. It is creative, it is emotional. Now both hemispheres work in consultation with each other before accepting or rejecting or reacting on any information that comes from outside. Now the raw information first comes to the right hemisphere. When it receives the information, the right hemisphere adds emotions, values, morals, and presents a picture to the left hemisphere for critical analysis before accepting it. Now the left hemisphere will ensure the information conforms to the existing belief. If it does, it will be accepted. If not, the information will be rejected or more information can be sought. For example, I say to an Agakhani that Aga Khan is a Noor of Allah, or he is Allah himself. The right hemisphere receives that information, paints it with emotion about Aga Khan, that how he perceives Aga Khan to be a savior, how he has a dream of seeing him again, and once all this emotion is painted over that information is then passed on to the left hemisphere. When the left receives that information painted with emotion, it doesn't get carried away. It will do the critical analysis. And the way it does it, one of the ways it does it is it will refer to the archives, the memory bank about Aga Khan. Now, in the Agakhani mind, similar memories and info is stored. That is, Aga Khan is a savior, he is God or what have you. Original suggestion that Aga Khan is a light of Allah or Allah himself will be accepted because left hemisphere has that information in store, and it has just verified that Aga Khan is God, and hence in consultation with each other, information will be accepted that Aga Khan is God. But if I was to say that Aga Khan is actually a playboy and that his system is a farce, left hemisphere will reject it because information will not match the records. Not only will it reject the suggestion, it will try and maintain existing belief despite overwhelming evidence. What we have just learned is memory about Aga Khan is already present in an Agakhani brain, but where did it come from? And when was it planted there? And who planted it? It was planted by the system, the cult, in the childhood. And let us understand the scientific or the physiological significance of planting this information very early in childhood. The child's brain is different to an adult's brain in the sense that the right hemisphere is more or less independent of left hemisphere's critical interference when it comes to accepting information. When a child receives information, he will readily accept it, particularly when it comes from people he trusts, his parents, his teachers, his religious school teachers, his elders, etc. At this stage, that is the early childhood stage, the left hemisphere, the critical thinker, is more or less inactive or dormant. The information can be pearls of wisdom or absolute garbage. The child will accept it because left hemisphere is dormant. Hence, we say children are gullible. Left will eventually start to grow. Eventually, it will assert its authority and begin to think critically, but it will take years. Whilst this left hemisphere's critical thinking is developing, religions and cults and the governments and the corporations ensure that the child is already indoctrinated before left hemisphere wakes up. And this is why it is important that you indoctrinate children. It is this very biological reality of our traitor in the skull that has left mankind vulnerable to people with ill intentions. With passing time, belief system forms and sets like hard concrete. I'm talking about the indoctrination. Whatever information you want to give to the child, he will store that information, form a belief system out of it, and by the time the left is mature enough to tell between good and bad, true or false, the belief system is already cemented. Now the child has been programmed. He will do what he has been told, even when he grows up. Is this anything less than child abuse or human abuse? If you wish to program human beings to follow you, it is absolutely critical that you do that. You mold them in their formative years, in early childhood. You can try the practicality of what I am talking about. You can try the practicality of this scientific research at home if you wish. Do this. During an Ismaili dinner party, talk about how Aga Khan is a blessing sent by God, or even try how Aga Khan is God. This information will be readily accepted, not one soul will object, even though they know nothing about God and they know very little about Aga Khan. But your suggestion will be readily accepted with a tear or two flowing down their cheeks, tears of affection. Reason being, the information that you've just given, it conforms with his existing belief. Now, in another dinner party, put a copy of UK Telegraph of March 2014, which reported Aga Khan found guilty of adultery. Try putting it on the coffee table and talk about it. The evidence will not be accepted simply because it does not conform to the existing belief, which maintains that Aga Khan is infallible and he cannot do anything wrong, full stop. No matter how much evidence you provide, it doesn't work like that. It is another matter that in the Jamaat Khanas, all sorts of fairyland stories, fictitious stories, fantastic stories are given to them, are fed to them on a daily basis. They will accept it, no problem, but they will reject the reality. That is the power of childhood indoctrination. They cannot see it. That faculty is closed. The chapter about Aga Khan in the brain is finalized, it is cemented, nothing and nobody will change it. He is infallible and he will always remain infallible, doesn't matter what do you do. Only a lucky few get to realize the reality. Only a lucky few gather the courage to confront the reality. Only a very select few get this gift of awareness. And I know many people, particularly after I started my campaign 3 months ago, I get so many messages of people who became aware. They became aware of the wrongdoing happening inside the Jamaat Khana. What is the difference between brainwashing and indoctrination? Let us understand indoctrination, because it is indoctrination that works in Jamaat Khana, not so much brainwashing, but it is important that we understand what they both are. Let's say I have a white shirt and I like it, but my mom doesn't like the white color, she wants it to be red. Now she will color the shirt with a red dye. When we were born, we were like a white shirt, pure, innocent, without any bias, without any beliefs. But once life began, the color of our experiences, our belief systems, information fed to us changed the color of that shirt. It is no longer white, it is now contaminated with red, green, black, blue. This coloring of the shirt is indoctrination. Indoctrination means inculcating ideas. When a child is born in a family that follows a religion or a cult, by default the child will inherit that religion or the cult. The child will not doubt its reasonableness, its pros and cons. It will not care whether it will follow Aga Khan or a cow or a rat, doesn't matter. A child has been born, say in Agakhani family, and he is now programmed to believe Aga Khan is God. If the same child was born and brought up in a Christian home, a practicing Christian's home, he would have inherited the belief that Jesus is the true savior. Jesus is the Son of God, not Aga Khan. The point I am making is we do not believe, we inherit the belief. When we were born, Christianity was there, Islam was there, Hinduism was there, Agakhanism was there, Buddhism was there, all the different faiths and all the cults in the world, they were there. But that doesn't matter. That is irrelevant. What is relevant is who got the opportunity to indoctrinate us. In whose house did we get born? Whatever the faith, we inherited. To us, that faith became the true faith. Whether it is true or not, throughout our lives, we will fiercely defend the faith. We will kill for it and be killed. Little do we realize that the faith cannot be true. Because when the faith becomes true, it is not faith anymore. It is truth. When faith becomes true, it does not remain faith anymore. Just like when the sun starts to rise in the morning, the darkness fades away. Darkness is not there anymore. And the faith is darkness. Truth is divine. And this truth is called Allah. This truth is called God. And this truth is called Bhagwan. And this truth is in the chest of each and every individual. Not only is it in every individual, it is in every particle in the cosmos. And we will talk about that in my next series next year. Now, I was talking about we inherit belief is transferred in the form of religious education, which not only comes from the religious schools, it also comes from the environment at home. It comes from the society. Abstract concepts are fed into the little mind. These imaginary ideas take us to a fairyland. Fairyland about which we don't know, nobody knows, but it is a fairyland. There is nothing wrong with living in a fairyland, except living in a fairyland leaves us open to abuse, because when we are in a fairyland, our senses are shut down, and when our senses are shut down, we are open for abuse. Sexual abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, all sorts of abuse. And let us understand how people and organizations take us into this fairyland. J.D. Brucker rightly says, indoctrination is about telling a child what to think, not how to think. The child, and later the same child becomes an adult, is not at a liberty to question or critically examine what has been taught to him. So it is through the process of indoctrination that belief systems are carried from one generation to another generation. Yes, it is us, it is the parents who gladly take their children to be bound to someone. In Agakhanis system, this process of binding somebody, of binding a child to Aga Khan, is called bayat. As discussed, soon after birth, a child will be brought to Jamaat Khana for the bayat ceremony. Bayat literally means allegiance. Newborn will take an oath of allegiance to the Imam of the time. Yes, a newborn will take an oath. The parents will take it on their behalf and hand over the child to the Imam of the time. And I have tried asking this question to so many people. What right does the parent have of handing over the child to somebody else? In response, I was counter questioned. Did you ever ask your child which primary school he would like to go to? And I said, no, I didn't. But I knew for a fact that in the school, my child will be taught science, which will demand evidence before he accepts any idea. He will be taught mathematics, which he will use on a daily basis. He will be taught a language, which he will use to communicate with real people and live a life. And I also knew that he will not be taken to a fairyland where ideas, sometimes toxic, will restrict my child's intellectual and reasoning capacity. Some say parents have a right over their child because they bring them to this world and make so many sacrifices. They have a right, they say. And I agree. Parents do have a right over the child, but not over the child's individuality. When a parent's thoughts, values and beliefs become their children's thoughts, values and beliefs, the child is no longer an individual. He becomes a carbon copy of his parents, and his parents were the carbon copy of the generation before. And that's how we produce generations of carbon copies, not individuals. And this is what is the disease in the modern day. We know our parents want the best for us, but do they necessarily know what is best? Instead of allowing the child to be indoctrinated, wouldn't it be desirable if parents were to give their children a good value system, show them how to think, give them the choice in matters of faith, and when they grow up, see the benefit, they can see the benefits of the faith, beliefs and the values. If they do see the value, congratulations, they can continue with that cult or the religion or the system, whatever it is, but give them the choice. Don't make the choice for them. Once the child has been accepted the faith anyway, the precious time will not be wasted by the cult, and the indoctrination will immediately begin. And indoctrination will be a lifelong process with Agakhanis system. In Agakhanis system, there is no need for brainwashing. Relentless indoctrination over the child's entire life will ensure the individual never escapes. Not only does he not escape, he is very happy in the cage that has been built for him. Criticism is used as a tool by cults to give its members a feeling of superiority over others. This is used by speaking in us against them terms. They criticize the outside world and claim their own superiority. Members of this group or the cult feel lucky to be associated with the cult. Social proofing is a psychological phenomenon. Again, members of the cult are made to believe that their actions and beliefs are appropriate because everybody else is doing it. And this social proofing works beautifully when the child grows up in a community where everyone is doing the same thing. To the child, because everyone is doing it, it must be right. This limits a child's ability to think critically on that particular topic. We discussed fear of being outcasted in previous episode. Although we will elaborate on this topic, fear, over next few videos, the idea is to impress upon the cult that belonging to the cult is safe, and more importantly, if you do not belong, it is not safe, not good for you. Constant repetition is another powerful persuasion tool. Although it may seem to be too simplistic to be effective, repeating the same message over and over again makes it familiar and easier to remember. When repetition is combined with social proofing, it delivers the message without fail. Existence of all affirmations is another proof that repetition works. If you can persuade yourself through repetition, chances are someone may attempt to use the repetition to manipulate you into thinking and behaving in a certain way. The leader of the cult at the end of the day wants you to stop being yourself. He wants you to be a robot, somebody he can control, someone who mindlessly follows their orders. Using all methods and mind manipulation techniques mentioned above, they will attempt to extract a confession from you that you are a sinner and they are divine. When you were born, you were not a sinner, but after you have met this cult and you have been indoctrinated, you are no longer innocent, you are a sinner. Before you know it, out of your desire to be consistent with what you do and say, you start identifying as one of the members of the cult. That is, you are a sinner. You identify yourself as a sinner. This technique of identity manipulation is lethal when combined with repetition, and we'll talk about that in detail a bit later. An extremely powerful human emotion is guilt. Mind captivators first discovered its commercial use in dark ages. The idea is somehow to make us believe our actions or deeds are sinful, so they can come to help. We are bad, so they can make us good, and because we are bad, something bad will happen to us. We need their help to get out of this situation, and this is where cults come in and they offer help, but not for free. They will charge you money. Whether you will benefit from their help, another matter. What is guaranteed is you will be abused, either sexually or financially or emotionally or psychologically. This help is not going to be for free. Next week, we will elaborate upon each of these techniques. We will understand how cults, particularly Agakhani cult, deploys these techniques on unsuspecting people, and in the process make people share their incomes with them. We will understand how each ritual, each prayer is loaded with these techniques and how scary it is. Until then, take care. Goodbye.